Hi peeps, Junction 6 here. Today's Sunday, so no World of Tanks Blitz replays. Instead, I want to talk about the game and the fact that everybody thinks that this game was so great in the past. Well, it wasn't. For a start, we had +2, -2 matchmaking, so you could be in a tier 5 up against tier 7s. And if you were in a tier 7, you could platoon with a mate in a tier 8 and end up in a tier 10 battle. Yeah, that stuff used to happen. And of course, everyone says that players are rubbish now, you know. Nobody knows what they're doing. They were bad in the past. They were just as bad. Look at this. That Skate Extreme actually getting totally wiped out. Yeah, it happened. It still happens today. And of course, who's to blame for this? It's not the players who are rubbish, it's Wargaming's fault, of course it is. They're the ones who made all the stupid decisions and brought silly things into the game and ruined it for us all. We were so good in the past. We weren't, we were just terrible in the past. The game was terrible. Yes, Wargaming made some bad decisions, shall we say, like 5.5. Considered one of the worst decisions Wargaming could have made. And spare parts was absolutely horrendous. Anybody who lived through spare parts knows how bad it was. You could actually buy a tank and not be able to play it for over a week because you didn't have the spare parts to be able to equip it properly. So you had a choice. You either went into battle with a kind of stock tank with no equipment, or you waited. That was your choice. You could only get these spare parts from missions. You couldn't buy them or anything like that. You had to get them by doing missions. And you couldn't begin to unlock the next level of equipment until you had at least one of the one before. And even then, it was on a 3-day timer. So that was good, wasn't it? And of course, another thing people complain about is crates coming into the game. But that would be a whole new video. Anyway, worst update ever, according to Economics Mate, and just about every YouTuber says it. 5.5 ruined the game, but I don't think it did. For those of you not around, 5.5 basically decimated the lower tiers, absolutely got rid of loads of tanks. So why did they do it? What made them want to do this? Well, I think there was two main reasons. The first reason being they looked at the data, and it showed, of course, that a lot of experienced players were playing lower tier. Why were they doing that? That's another question. And of course, a lot of new players were leaving the game quite rapidly because they were just getting wiped out by experienced players. So Wargaming had to do something. They wanted to keep the new players away from the experienced players. So what they did, they gave all the experienced players the chance to sell all their lower tier tanks and make a shed load of gold. And with that gold, those players would buy higher tier premium tanks. Because don't forget, this is back in the day, this is version 5.5. Things like earning credits were incredibly hard to do. There were no camos, there were no replays, there were no special fun modes where you could make loads of credits and XP. The game was very, very different back then. And the hardest part of the game was not the grind, it was getting hold of credits. Credits were incredibly difficult to get hold of. Everything cost credits, everything. Your ammunition cost credits, your camos cost credits every time you went into a battle. Your equipment, everything cost credits. And also gold was really hard to get hold of as well. So people would do one thing, they would play lower tier tanks to get credits. Everyone said it was seal clubbing. Of course it was seal clubbing, but it was the only way that you could play your IS-7, which was the tank to play, or your T-54, loaded up with heat shells. So that was the only way you could do it. You had to play lower tiers to feed your higher tier habit. That's what the game was. But by removing all these lower tier tanks, the problem was that people would grind up the lines a lot quicker and end up having to get credits from somewhere. And of course, at the time, the only way you could get credits was by using a gold tank, like, you know, your IS-6, your SU-100Y, or their trusty old Lerva. You know, these are the sort of tanks which people bought. The Lerva even had a camo with it you could buy. It was one of the first ones. Then Wargaming really ramped up the boosters. I mean, they ramped them up massively. Every event had boosters in it. Every box had boosters in it. Boosters were everywhere. And fun modes became a regular thing. Before that, you'd only get like one a month. And of course, battle passes. Battle passes came in where you could get a tier 6 tank which would make you credits. If 5.5 wouldn't have happened, Wargaming would have had no need to help people make credits. So you wouldn't have had fun modes, you wouldn't have had events, you wouldn't have had anything. We never used to have events, maybe one a month, one every 2 months. That was it back in the day. Honestly, back in the day, it was not a great place to be, Blitz. Today, nobody struggles for credits. Nobody really struggles at all. The game's not hard. You just play it. You can grind tanks, you get free XP, you get boosters, you get free tanks. What's there not to like, guys? 5.5's not to blame for absolutely idiotic players, because they existed in the past too. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next week for something different to Blitz.